theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Suzy Wrong, hello.
Hello, Warren. I've got something I want to talk about that is probably going to push the boundaries of our friendship even more.
Okay, all right. What have I done?
Get yourself ready. Based on your experience, do you think menage a trois are more trouble than they're worth?
Do I think they're more trouble? Probably. Yeah, I think so. Do you mean into like just a casual thing or a relationship?
I don't know. Like, because the movie starts with such a sexual start.
Did it?
Beginning.
Look, Sue, what do I think? I don't have an opinion on it. I really don't.
I'm just wondering if gay men, right, have are able to get into these sort of threesome situations easier, and if they can, why don't they do it all the time? And if they don't, why don't they do it all the time?
Suzy, let me elaborate. Look, my experience has been I'm not a fan because I always find if they work, they're really good. But if I don't like people being left out or feeling uncomfortable, so I find that sometimes someone does and it doesn't work. So I think in my opinion, I find that they can be risky from that perspective. If they work, they're great, but I don't either way. It doesn't worry me. If I'm in a situation like that, I'll say, "Excuse me, I'm bored." No, I wouldn't say that. But yeah, I just think I don't know. And, we know that people can be very, what's the word? I was going to say narrow-minded, but I don't mean narrow-minded like that. I mean, as in, they might be focused just perhaps on one person and then not everyone's it's not an equal thing. And then if you've got couples together and one gets a bit upset or something, so I don't know. I probably tend to avoid because I think they're a bit risky for me. That's my view anyway. What about you, Suzy? You don't go in less than 10, is that right?
Look, the issue with me is like my partners and I have completely different tastes, right? Like the kind of people that we like. We kind of essentially are quite hetero on the surface. So I like partners that are very, very masculine, and then they like partners that are very, very feminine. To find a third is just impossible. Do you know what I mean? That, people that I find attractive, the partner is not going to find attractive. And on occasions that it has happened, I think the issue is when you're in a sexual situation, you're always gauging what a person's turn-ons and turn-offs are. Yes,
and it's hard when there's
and then when it's more than one person, it's so much to kind of be attentive to, and it starts to become a lot more like work. I find that it's quite like I find myself like kind of really paying attention and trying to be really, really focused rather than just being able to enjoy a flow of the moment.
I agree with you.
Maybe it's just And
I'm always sort of, are you right? Or blah, blah, and then I don't enjoy it. And so for me, I think you're right. I think it's paying attention. Maybe you need to go into these situations just being selfish and thinking, you know what, I don't care. It's all about the pleasure, but I can't go in like that. So they're not for me. Suzy, this is really interesting because last night's TV show, From All Sides, I sat down. I was so excited. I was relaxed. I had Lucas on my lap, and I was giving him lots of pats. He was snoring his head off. I thought, I'm going to enjoy it.
I thought you said you were relaxed. You had lube in your hand.
I was relaxed. I had lube in my hand. I had Lucas. I was sitting down and I thought, you know what, this is going to be such a nice evening. And I sat down. Within 2 minutes of watching From All Sides, I completely zoned out of it. I was like, I can't watch this. I don't know what it was. I just found it really uncomfortable to watch, Suzy. And that's when I texted you and said, oh, my goodness. I don't know if I like this.
I was okay for about half an hour. And then I found that it was kind of going weird places. But let me talk about it.
Okay. Give us your review.
The movie starts with a bang. Married couple Anushka and Pascal are having a night out. We see them first at a bar before they move on to a full-blown orgy. Australian film From All Sides, now streaming on SBS On Demand, seems intent on making the taboo of an open marriage its unusual concern. But we soon discover that there is actually a lot more that it wishes to discuss. than the unconventional arrangement that we discover in its opening minutes. From All Sides is also about Western Sydney, the lands of the Dharawal people, and also about Asian Australian lives. Anushka is Indian with a background in traditional dance. Pascal is a musician with a Chinese mother and a white father. Clyde and Nina are their teenage children, and while they are all together a loving family, their days are not without challenges. We see each of them at work and at school, like any middle-class Aussies, except that they all have independent encounters with racism. As we get deeper into the story, it begins to look like the whole bisexual open marriage premise established at the start seems quite irrelevant. And while there is some pleasure in watching a movie without knowing where the narrative is planning on going, From All Sides is unfortunately never able to create any dramatic tension at any stage, even though the characters are likable and all the actors are doing a good job. The title kind of hints at the film's lack of focus. From All Sides has so much it wants to say, and many of the individual scenes are nicely crafted, but as a whole it proves too fractured to sustain our interest meaningfully. I love what the film stands for, and all the morals of the various stories that we encounter are quite wonderful. But on a more basic level of spinning and engaging yarn, it is sadly lacking. It's great to see Asian Australians framed as sexual and desirable humans. It is great to be frank about the hardship that we continue to struggle under white colonialism. And it is great to see an example of a family making their own rules for how they want to live as descendants of immigrants. I can certainly see why this movie was made, and I admire the passion that these creators have put into their work. This is only the director's second feature, so it's early days yet for her career, and she no doubt has drive and ambition to take things further. Warren, tell me about the suburb you grew up in. Was there any inferiority complex about where you came from?
Not really. No, I grew up in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, and no inferiority complex at all. But a very quite normal upbringing. Nothing special. Why do you ask that about the suburbs? Because all this goes on in the suburbs. Shock.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's this issue with at the moment with Western Sydney. I feel like they're always trying to establish themselves as a kind of, they are a legitimate metropolitan area, but they're always seen as like the kind of the ugly sister to Sydney. So I do understand kind of artists, not just in film, a lot of what I do is in theatre, and there is a lot of trying to kind of resist resist to have them tell stories with a Sydney focus, as though the only people that matter are kind of Sydney people. So I find that interesting, and I find how that is quite challenging to have two cities so nearby. This is Suzy. The way your review was great about the movie. Thank you so much for it, From All Sides on SBS On Demand. But you're absolutely right. I feel like the film was saying all the right things, but somehow it didn't bring us along with it. Sometimes we agree with everything a film is trying to say, and I felt bad, and I thought, I could come on today and say, look, yes, great, and talk about it, but I didn't enjoy watching it at all, and that would be inauthentic to say that. But it had the right things. Its intentions are great, but it never emotionally connected with me. And what I want to ask you is, does a message matter, particularly this, like you mentioned Asian Australians, etc., if people switch off before they hear it? Or is it good enough just to produce the movie and think, you know what, at least we're addressing these issues? Because I knew it was about these things. I'd done a bit of research beforehand, but many people may not like it and may not get the messages that it intends to make. What do you think? What I think is we are talking about disadvantage, a lack of privilege, right? Because people who haven't had the same kind of opportunities and same kind of exposure to skills and techniques and what have you, and yet we have the responsibility to tell our stories, and there are more and more opportunities now for us to tell our stories, but it has to come from somewhere. We can't just enter the realm and be fully formed. I say that very very clearly, not just only as an immigrant, but also as a trans person. You know, now it almost feels like all of a sudden people want trans creators a lot. They want us to hear outside our perspectives. But all this stuff requires a lot of skill. You can't just kind of appear out of nowhere fully formed. So we are in a position where we have to go through a learning curve, you know, and from my perspective as a reviewer and a critic is a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in, a lot of the stories that I want to hear, a lot of people that I want to hear from, they are in a very early stages of their careers, and the way that we gain experience is a lot slower, you know, because we're not learning as 16, 17-year-olds. A lot of us are learning as 30, 40-year-olds, trying to create something that seems quite professional. So I understand that part really well, and I also understand as a viewer sometimes some of these titles are really hard to sit through. But I'm thinking, like, you know, if not now, when? And if not these people, then who? The people are not just going to come out of nowhere.
But then if no one's watching them, how do you progress? Like there were some great topics in this movie to talk about. But if the movie's not good, people aren't going to watch it, and then they're not going to talk about it. That's the sad part of it for me. You know, like the fact that it presents an open marriage without immediately making it the moral issue is great. The way it did that. You know, why are we so uncomfortable with stories that don't tell us who's right and who's wrong? They just had the story there. And I like that. And that's something that I just feel like there's an opportunity missed to expand people's knowledge and minds as well.
Yeah, I think there are two sides to look at it. On one hand, I think there are people who want to create, people who are creators and artists, and I feel like it is not, they shouldn't make it their responsibility to be like, all right, I have to make something that people are going to like, that people are going to watch, even though it is kind of well beyond my abilities. I feel like artists should have a lot of freedom to fail and just to try until something happens. I think that's how art works. On the other hand, there's a really, really pragmatic business side of how do you sustain business models, and how do you create audience ships that you're not gonna alienate too much and scare them away permanently. So those are all really, really big questions that I think about every day. But ultimately, what I come to is we just gotta try to give people the space to create and hope. And the truth is, a lot of unexpected successes do happen. The hit rate might be a bit low, but there are successes, and the successes don't happen without kind of giving everyone quite a wide berth. When I say everyone, I mean people who are traditionally disadvantaged, to give them a little bit more leeway.
Suzy, I love the way you said that, and we're very lucky because you bring us these titles to watch, and a film can challenge our thinking, can't it? It's got that power, but I feel like it still needs to keep us emotionally invested, and they're not the same thing. And I don't mind being challenged. I just don't want to feel disconnected and from a movie in order to have that challenge.
Look, my favorite filmmakers of all time, three of them come to mind. One's from Spain, one's from America, one's from Hong Kong. They're all queer filmmakers, and they started in the 70s and 80s. And their early films are unwatchable. I think that's a very big lesson for me. Yeah, the early films are unwatchable, but they needed to go through that process. Obviously, there were a lot of people that made unwatchable movies in the 70s and 80s, and some of them fade away, and some of them stuck around and learned and got better, and then became really great. So that's the way I look at things.
The other thing, Suzy, if a film if it tackles things like race and sexuality and identity and family, and I felt this too. I feel guilty about saying, look, it didn't work. But criticism of execution isn't necessarily criticism of the the themes. And so not liking a film doesn't mean you don't support what it's trying to say. So I think you're right. I think the fact that, they're giving it a go, you've brought it to us, we're talking about it, it's good. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and your attitude is right, like you're admitting, or at least you're acknowledging and you're understanding that you didn't kind of enjoy it as a bit of entertainment, but your criticism of it was not, it's not vitriolic, it's not personal. It is just your experience of it, and it's great that you saw the intent of it. I think that's wonderful.
So what the Lucas on my lap was much more got lots of pats, not the lube like you thought I said, Suzy. Suzy, look, it's great you bring us these things. Got a message in from David in Fitzroy. David says, I keep missing this segment. Suzy and you give great old guys, but gays, on the Muppet Show hot takes. Remember them?
I love the Muppet Show.
That can be us, Suzy. Suzy, did you see the film clip of Madonna and Kylie at World Pride?
I did. It was wonderful. The Madonna album is incredible, and it's so exciting to see. I think there was an announcement today that the new single is featuring Kylie is going to be dropping next week. I'm sure, was it? Yeah, in a couple of days or something. We did hear a bit of it on Instagram. They played a little bit, but the full single apparently is coming out in a few days.
Madonna's amazing, isn't she? Like, to keep producing music. I mean, I was at high school when she was releasing hits. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had woman pop stars in their kind of late 60s who's ever done the things that she's doing, and there are very big lessons, or at least inspiration to be taken. We have a lot of people said that age is arbitrary, and sometimes it's hard to hear that when you're older. But she's a great example. Yeah, I think we need to we have to take her seriously.
We're chatting with one of the Muppets, Suzy Wrong, from All Sides on SBS On Demand. Suzy, what are we watching next week?
The Shards is coming to Disney Plus in a couple of days, a new series set in the early 80s, tracking a group of privileged high school friends as a serial killer strikes across the city of Los Angeles. It is called The Shards, and it's on Disney Plus. And I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.